Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode number 13 and we got a great episode planned today, brother.
Yes, 13.
So,
Crazy.
how's things been with you?
Good
Cool.
week.
We have a different acoustic setup. We're trying to be a little bit more professional. We have 2 microphones, which is pretty good. However, we have 3 guests for 2 microphones. So we're doing an interview today. With us, we have Chris Green. Chris, how you doing today?
Good, man. I'm glad to be here.
So give a little background on Chris and why we chose him. There's a multitude of reasons, which we're going to get into in detail. Just a little quick bio. Currently serving over 10 years in law enforcement. You're a patrolman and a K-9 handler for East Liverpool Police Department. And then you did 7+ years in MMA, where you held 3 championship titles, including the Pennsylvania Golden Gloves champ in boxing. And then you have like a sports background, which is something that we talk about often on the podcast. So you kind of fit the mold of someone we want to talk to. So to get started, who is Chris Green? I mean, I give you this little bio, but who is Chris Green in your eyes? Who are you?
Complex to say the least. I'm just a poor kid from downtown East Liverpool. Literally chasing my dream, man.
It's awesome.
We did not have money growing up, but what my parents did teach us was unbelievable. Like, looking back, like I couldn't imagine. Like, I owe everything to my parents. The work ethic, the nitty, the gritty, you know, it's just, it helps me every day in my job. It's almost like a warrior mentality. You know, my mom has it, my dad has it, my brothers have it, my sister. I mean, it's just coming from where I grew up. I would never have dreamed I'd be where I am today. And I'm still not there, you know.
Still going, which is
still
something
going.
we're going to talk about, because it seems like you have some things that are hopefully in the works as far as some of the dreams you're currently chasing. So talk about the mentality that your parents instilled in you, because I've been adamant, like when I teach with my kids, about how much my parents helped me, how much teachers helped me. Like, I had a lot of influential people in my life that helped take me from where I was to where I am now, and then I continue to surround myself with good people to take me from where I am now to where I want to go. So is that kind of how you got involved with sports, like that mentality that your parents taught you about, like you alluded to, the warrior mentality and give it all that you have at all times? Is that kind of why you felt like you blended well with sports from an early age?
Absolutely. My dad was instrumental in getting us into football and wrestling. Growing up, I did not want to wrestle. I remember my first take at it. We went into Potter Mites, and I saw a singlet, and I'm like, no way, man. Get me out of here. I think I was maybe 9. But what my dad and my mom instilled in us is a work ethic. You know, we were accountable for everything. You know, you didn't get to sit around and do nothing. You know, we're building fences and helping him with cars, and, you know, doing chores. You know, being responsible kids, being accountable, and then that transferred into the sporting aspect of it. You know, when a coach expects you to, you know, wrestling, he expects you to go out there and do your job. You know, football. Everything that a coach is teaching you, your parents are teaching you, but it's just tweaked slightly different.
And the interesting part about football versus wrestling is that in wrestling, that accountability falls back solely on you. Obviously, you have like team tournaments and stuff, but it's largely an individual sport. Whereas with football, if you don't do your responsibilities, you let the whole team down.
Correct.
And I'm assuming that it was probably like that with your family. If one of your brothers doesn't do, because you are the middle of 3 brothers, right?
No, I'm actually the oldest.
Okay, you're the oldest.
Sean would have
Gotcha.
been yes.
So you have 3 brothers, and if one of them doesn't do their job, essentially lets the whole family down.
We're all getting talking to, I guess you could say.
For lack of a better term.
It was very structured, very you got away with nothing in our household. But growing up, I hated it. I mean, I absolutely hated it.
Yep.
You know, you're 12, 13, 14, you know it all. You know, you're, you know, in the gym all the time and getting ready, you know. But what my parents instilled was, you know, it just transferred right into sports,
Mm-hmm.
and that toughness, that expectation to to give it all, do your best, it paid off, man.
And it seemed like kind of a natural transition because I had the same thing, like with my parents, like especially my dad, where he was so brutally hard on me. To
You're
the
like,
point
life
where,
isn't fair.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because hey, well, John gets to go here, you know, Tommy gets to go here. Why can't I go there? And he would
And then
always
they-
say, "Well, I'm not John or Tommy's parents.
That's it.
You know, I'm your dad, and I can tell you what to do, and this is how we're going to do it." And it was always upsetting to me and frustrating. I had a great childhood, but like I hated that aspect of it. And for me, it didn't click until probably about my sophomore year or junior year of college. Like I specifically remember where I was. I was sitting on my bed in my dorm or my apartment at the time. And I might have told this story on an earlier episode, but I just remember sitting on my bed, and all of a sudden, for no reason, it clicked. I wasn't thinking about my family. I was just watching football, and I thought, you know, because I was thinking about going to work that night, and I thought, man, like, I don't know if I'd be able to sustain, you know, a full course load and working 2 jobs in college and then having time for myself if it wasn't for my parents teaching me to do that stuff. So I picked up my phone, called my mom and dad right away, and thanked them for everything they did, because it wasn't until later that you kind of, that stuff manifests itself as far as like why they did it. Now you're like, oh, I get it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, my dad was very young when he raised me and my brother, and then they eventually had 2 more kids. But his work ethic is unmatched.
Yeah.
Even now, I mean, he's obviously older than now, but his work ethic is just that's where I get it from. My mom's the same way, you know. But my dad would go to work, you know, 10, 12, 16 hours, come home, coach us in wrestling and football. Never missed a sporting event. It was just like the backbone.
Yep.
But man, was he hard. He was hard.
And
I
Justin
actually got to play football for him, you know, when I was a kid, and
But he was firm but fair. You know what I mean? He never picked a side, and you know, he was our biggest fan. And you almost didn't want to disappoint him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like you, as a dad, but as your coach, and that kind of mentality transferred over to football and wrestling. When I coached at Beaver Local, I was the same. You know, I like to think I was the same way. You know, firm but fair. You know, the kids knew what to expect. And I think a kid needs structure.
And
you know?
I'll tell you what, coaching and teaching for as long as I have, kids want structure as well.
They don't realize they want it, but
Yes.
you can almost see it starting to click. And when they start to grasp it, it's like, Coach Charlie was right. Dang.
Yeah, exactly. Once they see the benefits of how your high expectations help them,
Right.
then that's the most important thing is when you work with people, you have to understand that everybody is deep-rootedly selfish. And I know that sounds cynical, but everybody
Absolutely.
wants like something from someone else or how they're going to benefit from it. Like everything I do, like even in teaching, if it's something like a professional development, I want to know, how is this going to benefit me? So kids are the same way. So I feel like that when you work with people, the first thing you have to explain to them is show them that you have the tools to help them.
Right.
So as a coach, it's like, hey, I can help you. I know where you want to go, and I can help you get there. You just have to trust me. Now, it's going to be hard. I'm going to be tough
And
on
this
you.
is how we're going to get there.
Exactly. And
Yes.
then you laid the blueprint. And Justin, you kind of had a similar upbringing, especially with your dad and his work ethic. I mean, considering he does, you know, the triathlons and the Ironmans and all that crazy stuff
That's a
that I couldn't
different
imagine.
level of just a different level of human being. The people that can do that. I mean, I would consider myself a good athlete, and I question if I could even finish. You know, no matter how much I train. That's just it takes a special person to do a triathlon. you
well,
know.
I'm training for one right now, actually, and it's hard. It's tough. The amount of training you got to do is incredible. So.
And I think that we can, all 3 of us can definitively say that upbringing helps all of that. You know?
Absolutely.
So you have this natural draw to sports because of how your parents were. You know, father being a coach, naturally get involved in sports. You play football, you wrestle, very successful at both. And then I believe you played football in college, right?
Yeah, at the time, I went to Mount Union for football. I wanted to stay close to home. They were and are a powerhouse. Division III, obviously. Looking back, I kind of wish I would have went for wrestling. I had the option for both.
And I was going to ask you why you chose football over wrestling.
It's that Friday Night Lights. It's hard to pass up, man. It's hard to a senior. You talk to anybody that graduates. Friday Night Lights was one of the best times of a person's life.
And you can't replicate it. No, you can't repeat it.
No,
it is what it is.
TV shows about it. It's undescribable. I went to East Liverpool when we played Beaver local. We were going against Adam Hopple and Matt Fiocchi and Jake Robinson. Kids are just phenomenal. And here we are. Just a smaller kids. We're just rough. I mean, we were just downright rough.
Yeah.
But we had phenomenal coaches, and to see that place packed, whether it was here or East Liverpool on a Friday night, man, it just gives you goosebumps.
Yeah.
Even if you had no interest in either team, just to see that crowd, So it's kind of the reason I chose football. Mount Union was good and bad at the same time. I never really got a good shot at it.
Well, I mean, and for those people that don't understand, like you said earlier, Mount Union is an absolute D3 powerhouse.
Correct.
In contention for the Division III national title every single year.
Sent several to the pros.
Yeah.
CFL, Canadian football. They are an absolute powerhouse.
And they have, to the best of my knowledge, they have like 200 guys on their roster. I mean, you got like 100 guys that don't even get to dress. 100 plus guys that don't even get to dress.
Several people are wearing the same number, and it just like there's like 4 number 8s on the defense, and it's just there's a lot of competition. But I chose that to stay close to home with my family. Opening kickoff. Ran down, completely blew out my bicep and shoulder. So first play of my college career, I was done. Opening kickoff. I tried to play in the fourth quarter. My bicep literally rolled into my forearm. They had to reattach it, screw it, anchor it down. A lot of therapy. Took me a couple years to recover. But that led me on a path that I'm so grateful for, because I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
That caused me to move to Florida with my family, and that's where I took up boxing as a dare. That's the crazy part.
So did the boxing come before the MMA?
Yes.
Now,
initially,
I got to ask this too, because we've asked this with some of our former college athletes, with that void being present, because football's gone. You trained your whole life in sports, and now that's not there anymore. I know that you said boxing was kind of like a dare that you just did on a whim, but did you feel like there was like part of Chris was missing? Like, I don't have
absolutely.
sports.
There's anybody that says there's not, you're a liar. Anybody say I'm sorry, there's no denying that. So that work ethic, think about it. We played sports since we were 7. 7 is when I started. So you're in this routine, summer's football, fall's football, then winter sports is wrestling, then you go into track for, by the time you graduate college, you're 21, 22, 23 years old. So better part of 14, 15 years, you're locked in, you're in a routine.
You don't know what it's like without that.
Right. Yep. Whether you're varsity, JV, that camaraderie and that work ethic, So part of that was missing.
So how did the boxing thing happen?
So
I'd like to be a fly on the wall for that dare.
Yeah. So I was actually selling cars. I was still recovering from shoulder surgery, so I needed money. I moved to Ocala, Florida, and some of the older guys was like, "Let's go to a boxing gym," and it was right down the road. Turns out it was one of the best in the country. And
walking into the hornet's nest, and you didn't even know it.
Yes, and guys that are on national TV these days were training there. Thank God I never went against them. I mean, I had raw power, but raw is to say at least. No technique, no anything, and these guys would have just mopped the floor with me. They're professionals, So the coach liked the work ethic. I had that never die attitude, that warrior mentality instilled from my parents, and then the coaches, honed it in on it. So we walk in as a dare, and they had like a tough man kind of thing at one of the local bars, and I went in there and just just destroyed some people. And
Yes.
and at that time, Josh Stansbury was fighting. They just started having fights down in Steubenville, Ohio, at St. John's Arena, and me and Josh graduated together, grew up, wrestled together.
And I'm going to interject here real quick for those of you that don't know Josh Stansbury. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was on the Ultimate Fighter Championships.
He was in the UFC.
Then got a contract to fight in the UFC. Fought
in
a handful of times. Was in Bellator as well. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners, obviously everyone that's local would probably be familiar with him, but then some of our non-local listeners may not know who Josh is. Okay, so continue.
Yeah. So the Sandman is his nickname, his fight name. He convinced me to fly up from Florida.
Where you had just recently moved.
Yeah, so I moved after Mount Union. I went there to recover because we had family there, and then my parents actually moved there because all the kids were growing up. And you know, Florida's the retirement.
That's where you go.
So so we kept the family together. All the aunts and uncles and stuff are there. So as I'm recovering, I would say I'm probably 80% recovered from surgery. But walk in the boxing gym, and Josh is, I want to say he's fought 3 times, something like that. And he says, "You got to fly up," and I'm like, "No way, man, no way." I'm scared out of my mind. He's like, "Just do it, man." He's like, "Worst case scenario, rely on your wrestling." And I'm like, no, not doing it. He finally convinced me August of 2006. And I fly up. They paid for me to fly up, and we fought at St. John's Arena in Steubenville. And I think my first fight lasted like 61 seconds. I have the shorts mounted. I mean, photo albums. It was a rush that is undescribable. He threw a punch, and we're ducking and diving, and just cracked him, and broke his. I mean, not to there's some things broken on him, and the fight was finished, quick. And then it was like the next month, there's another fight opportunity. So they're essentially paying me to fly up here, and I'm getting paid to stay in shape. I'm getting paid to fight. Getting paid extra to win. And it was that rush that we just talked about. That football, that Friday Night Lights.
So now the void, it looks like it could be filled. You're like, I might be able to do this, and not only that, but hey, I'm getting paid for this too, so I can do this.
That is the dream.
So and then growing up, I've always been fascinated with boxing. Seeing Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, and these other, and just the skill level. I knew I was never going to be. I knew that I was never even remotely close, but was going to give it my best. So after 3 fights, I quit my job down there and I moved back to Ohio. I was like, I'm doing this full time. I then got back into college, realized that I needed college. So
back to Mount?
No, I enrolled in Kent State.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm working full time in corrections, and and then at one point I go to a juvenile group home.
So that was kind of how the law enforcement sort of started.
Funny story to get sidetracked real quick. I remember being about 10 years old. It's in the summer. Where the house I grew up in, Justin's familiar.
Absolutely.
A friend of ours, Antonio, him and my brother were begging me to come outside, and I'm like, nope, episode of Cops is on. And he's like, what? And he's like, that's all you do. All you ever do is watch Cops. And he's like, you're going to be a cop one day. So when I became a cop, 15 years later, many years later, I see him down in East End. I'm like, you were right, man. He's like, I knew it, man. I knew that you were going to be a cop. It'd be hot summer days, and they couldn't get me out of the house until the episode of Cops was, done.
What was it that drew you to that? Because I get the wrestling and the football thing because the upbringing, and then the expected progression from there would be fighting or some type of other physical activity. Not that law enforcement isn't physical, because obviously there's a ton involved with it. But what aspect of law enforcement was attractive for you? Why did you say, hey, I think I might like doing this?
I like chasing evil.
Yeah.
It's not for everybody. Sometimes I hate myself for it. I'm like, man, I wish God had a different calling. But as a kid, I liked the idea of going out and helping people, chasing down bad guys. And I was very street smart growing up. I knew what was going on in the neighborhoods around us and stuff like that. And I'm like, that dude is, he's
right.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was just a burning inside. It's kind of hard to explain.
So it was kind of partially the person inside of you, the ethical and moral person
Yes.
that you are,
Yeah.
the good in you, and then also kind of like the allure of the fantasy of like
Yeah,
chasing the bad guys and being the hero. And,
Yes. Yep. So there's some of that Friday Night Lights
Yeah,
coming back. You
for
know what I
sure,
mean? Because
yeah.
when you we're not playing shoplifters and stuff. We deal with some very rough murders and rapists and very bad people, and they're going to do anything and everything not to get caught and get away from you.
This isn't a game. This isn't football
this is
anymore.
real life.
No.
Yeah.
This is you make a mistake, it's going to cost you your life. So as a kid, I knew that I wanted, but getting in to East Liverpool Police Department, I thought was impossible. Growing up, the officer that really started to help me was Officer Hildebrand, the DARE
Yes.
officer. He'd come into the school
It was
and
awesome.
teach us about don't do drugs,
Yeah.
and just seeing the equipment and the gear and the persona and everything. So we fast forward many years. I'm doing the MMA, doing the boxing. I get back into Kent State, or I get into Kent State because I wanted to finish my degree. I started at Mount Criminal Justice. I finished with a 4-year degree at Kent State. And as I'm going through college, it was not easy. I mean, you're working full time. You're training twice a day.
Yep.
Yeah.
You are literally on survival mode. Constantly dieting. I'm fighting 4 to 6 times a year, roughly. And the only way that I'm really making money is either I go to work full time and then I'm fighting as basically a second job to pay my bills.
Right.
And I would have never been able to do that if it wasn't for my parents.
Yeah.
Seeing, if I would have been raised differently where things were maybe handed to me, never would have happened.
So that's where it starts to come full circle, and you
Yes.
say, okay.
Yes.
I see.
Parents knew what they were doing, I
Yes.
suppose.
It's,
When the kids were out running the neighborhood, me and Justin are like, parents are like, nope,
Yeah.
you're doing your homework, and then you might
That's
get an
it.
hour outside.
Mhm.
And then when you go outside, you got dog crap to clean up, you got chores to do, take out the trash,
That's it.
help your mom fold clothes. It was very task oriented. And after Kent State, I was getting ready to graduate, and a friend of mine, Troy Walker,
Yep.
called me. Very well known guy, cop. I mean, he's been a cop since I was a kid.
Yep.
I remember seeing him come coach in full uniform and point to his gun and his taser and all the cool gear. He called me and said, hey, East Liverpool's going to be hiring. And I was like, man, I don't know. Because my dream, I don't want to say dream, but my goal was to go to the U.S. Marshals.
Okay.
I like the idea of chasing down people, dangerous people, kicking in doors, chasing that adrenaline, that Friday night
Yes.
lights.
Yeah.
You're kind of playing like tag, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're chasing down people that don't want to be caught. But to do the U.S. Marshals, the DEA, the FBI, the federal jobs, you had to have a bachelor's degree. So as I'm going through college,
That's the goal.
doing the fighting, and it's different than high school. I would say I was an average student in high school. I cared about sports, and I got decent grades. B's and C's,
Yeah.
very few A's. I was good in science. I liked science, anatomy, chemistry. I was a nerd in those, but the other stuff, I'm like, doing that when you get to college and you're paying for it, it's a different ball game.
Oh,
It's
it definitely changes your mentality. I can speak to that for sure, being involved in education. And when you're paying for it, it's different.
Yes.
Um,
When an employer is going to look at your GPA and your attendance, and they have access to all that stuff, it's
Yeah.
like, Charlie, you finished with the C average versus Justin, you finished with an A in the same subject. What's
yeah,
so
who am I hiring?
yeah.
and in the job force, regardless of what career path you're in, it comes down to splitting hairs a lot of times. I mean, you see it in athletics where, like, take quarterbacks, for example. I mean, they're going by so many of these metrics where quarterbacks are literally losing out on millions of dollars because their hand size.
Yeah.
Because they measure the
or
size
height,
of their hands
or
height.
one's 5'10" and the other one's 6'4".
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But So it comes full circle, and I'm glad I did it. I lost a lot of money in the beginning, staying local versus federal. The pay was not very good. And then when I got hired, Chief John Lane gave me the opportunity. I had no experience. I had no police academy. I just had a 4-year degree. But to be a cop in Ohio, you have to go to a peace officer's course. So the chief sent me to the Ohio State Highway Patrol Academy. It was, I believe, a 19-week course, and then other soon-to-be cops just like me from all over Ohio, and we go through a boot camp.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's military boot camp. They're tossing your beds. You're getting hazed, and that's where the hardness from my parents, the coaches, the boxing, all that stuff prepared me for that academy, because you're sleep deprived. You're having to, we're marching and running in formation at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And you look back and be like, my dad was harder on me than this.
Yeah.
But
Right.
This is a typical weekend for me.
Yeah, but you got these troopers yelling at you, and it's all it saved my life. The way that they were at the academy, but it all starts with my parents.
It's interesting how a child.
But when you're going through it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
my life's awful and it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has things that I don't. Everybody's parents are nicer. My thing was I never understood why my parents, like everybody would come to me and say, oh, you have the nicest parents in the world. I'm like, no, they're not nice. You don't see them behind closed doors. They're mean.
They make me do the dishes.
But it's just crazy how like everything that you like. That's why I like teaching so much, because children are so impressionable.
Yeah, oh,
like,
absolutely.
So what you do at an early age literally affects you for your entire life, good or bad.
Right.
So like we were lucky enough to be raised by good parents, and that's why we are how we are.
And unfortunately, we're living in a day and age where the addiction rate is through the roof. A lot of these kids are being raised by friends and grandparents, and there's a famous athlete that just came out of here. If not for people taking a chance on him, he wouldn't be in the NFL.
Yep.
And he's been open about it. He wasn't gifted growing up. He was a heck of a workhorse. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And us three were very lucky.
Very.
There's a lot of kids that I see that I'm like, man, I hope this kid turns out.
Yeah, I hope that he gets through the system.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I love and hate this job. I want to give them hope. I want to be a role model, and go that extra mile. Not just be, a guy in a uniform. I want to make it as personal as possible. It's awesome when you walk into school and they say, "Hey, Officer Green, where's the dog? And nice to see you." Or you go. The other day we were at a house and it was a domestic violence situation, and kids involved, kids present, I guess you could say. And you walk in and the kids are like, "Hey, Officer Green," and it completely takes their mind off the situation because you made a good impression in school.
Yeah.
When you were in uniform in school, and so it helps bridge that gap. That's one of the things I love about this job.
Super impactful that you can be. It's interesting because there's so much polarity with law enforcement as far as how people view them.
Right.
But like, if you look at it objectively, it seems like the overwhelming majority look at you guys as like an escape.
Yeah.
Almost from like, there's so many ways you can look at law enforcement officers as heroes, or just as someone that like you can aspire to be like, or even just as a friend. I mean, I know that we have resource officers here in the school, like Officer Kendall stops by our room pretty regularly and talks to the kids. And it's so cool to see like the rapport that the students have with the officers, and that no matter what's going on in your home life, there's always people out there to support you. Your teachers, officers. It's interesting to see the interaction there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then somebody in a position of law enforcement, I remember growing up as a kid, always feeling judged, for things I didn't have, or felt like I was being judged, And so to see an officer come in and talk to me like everything's great, and not judging me for what I thought people were judging me for. So I want to do the same. Talk to everybody, every kid. Favoritism, I guess you could say. Show no favoritism, no firm but fair. Just like my dad was, and it's a very complex job.
And the kids that need you the most.
Yes.
I mean, it's so one thing that I've been pretty adamant with teaching is, generally speaking, kids need the exact opposite of what they get at home, because they get that so much that they generally need the opposite type of like behavior reinforcement or whatever. So if a kid is at home and they don't get any love, and it's a very tough situation at home, coming from a broken family, they need a lot of love and a lot of positive reinforcement. Some kids are the opposite, where they come from homes that are stable, but they need a little toughness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can be tougher on those kids. So ultimately, I think it boils down to giving people the opposite. I'm sure that you can see the kids that need you. Like, this kid needs Officer Green.
Yeah. Right. And it's case by case situation, and it's tough. It's the addiction aspect of this job, and seeing what these kids go through is very tough. So to walk into schools and to give them, 5 minutes of my time, 10 minutes of my time to laugh, for them to look through the uniform, to pet the dog, been very lucky with the dog, to get the dog. He was paid for solely by the community donations. The dog itself with training is just shy of $15,000.
Wow. Yeah.
And then you have to buy the cruiser. It has to be specially equipped, and to bring him into schools and let them get 5-10 minutes of happiness and just be a human being to him. It's a great part of this job.
And I like where this is going. Let's stick with the police officer thing, because we could probably have a whole episode just on the fighting and the childhood aspect. Let's continue to go down the law enforcement route. We kind of Justin predominantly brainstormed a couple questions that we thought, maybe things that we want to know and things that other people want to know about you.
So one of the questions that I had, and it was simple, it was kind of organic, the thought I had I was going to ask you before we even talked about the podcast, but how rewarding is it to be a police officer and to being active and changing the stigma on cops? Because some people have this, they're going to pull me over and write me a ticket, or they're not fair, or this, that, the other thing.
I think that's, and I have tons of cop friends, tons.
Yeah.
I have, a couple friends that are high up in the FBI, and still every time you see a cop behind you, you automatically think, did I do something wrong? It's like there's that little bit of nervousness.
It
or
doesn't
anxiety.
go away, let me tell you. I'm in my personal car and I see one pull out. I'm checking my seatbelt, checking my speed. It just doesn't go away.
Yeah, it's natural.
It's a good thing, actually.
Yeah. But it's very rewarding, but very tough. The only reason that I'm a cop is because I'm very faith-based. I couldn't do what I do without God. That was instilled at a very early age, and it's just growing stronger every day. Kind of what we were just talking about, the addiction process. Many of the friends that I'm sure we all know people, friends, family. I've heard of people overdose, die. Kids are affected.
Yeah.
But with that, many of the people that we played North Stars football with are gone. But the rewarding aspect of it is been able to help and change a lot of them.
Yeah.
That firm but fair mentality. I've had to arrest my best friend many, many times the last several years. Literally put him in prison, but it saved his life. And now today, we've regained a relationship. He's an outstanding wrestling coach. He's dad. He'd be dead. He'll tell you he would have been dead. We've literally served search warrants on his residence, on his house.
And I can't think of anything that would make you feel more rewarded or more validated than someone saying, "Hey, Chris, like
You
your
saved my
actions
life.
saved my
Yes.
life." Yeah.
Yes, and it's not just me. I mean, there was, the whole department is, you know what I mean. But I remember being hard on him, literally hiding in the woods next to his house and waiting, to arrest people leaving there. And to see it come full circle, to see him be outstanding father, a human being, wrestling coach, a man of God, and to see how happy he is now, it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever been a part of.
And I like that you brought up your faith too, because no matter what you're in, whether it's teaching, or working with trucks in the oil field, or being a police officer, and especially
janitor,
in fitness, anything, I feel like you need something to hang on to in tough times.
Yeah.
For some people that can be family, for some people that can be moral support of their friends. For some people, unfortunately, they turn to drugs to get them through difficult times. So it's nice and reassuring to know, that someone like yourself turns, to religion as like kind of like a therapeutic outlet, and it gives you purpose too.
Absolutely. Growing up, I was, led to church, on major holidays and stuff. But the more I do this job, the closer to God I've become. There's been many times, I'm on a traffic stop and, I prayed with people. You go and beyond and above, behind the scenes, donating your time and money to people. Some of it's gotten recognition, but it doesn't. It's not why we do it, There's so many cops that I know and friends with that I absolutely love, that go above and beyond on a regular basis, donating time and money to to people in need. Very rewarding. There was an incident, a couple months ago. We did a search warrant, and this girl needed help. She was in the drug trade. Bad. I mean, grandparents, her parents are in it.
Something that you get looped into, and it's like a tar pit. The more you fight to get out of it, the deeper you get.
She never had a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, we were lucky. We had great, upbringings. She never had a chance. And I remember it was in the city limits, sunny afternoon. She's sitting there, and she's just defeated. And we called Josh Lytle and his wife. They run Family Care Ministries. It's all faith-based. They showed up. They get this girl help. She commits.
Yeah.
And to see the transformation, because I can't tell you how many times we've responded where she's overdosed. And now to see it starting to go in a completely different direction. She's a woman, outstanding woman, loves God, and we did an event for them to have them all go get their haircuts. It was like 4 girls. It was a complete surprise to them.
Yeah.
I remember driving one day, and God put it on my heart. He's like, call Josh Lytle, do something nice for these girls. And we were brainstorming, and me and Josh was like, let's do it. So we got basically a beauty makeover,
Yes.
Seeing this girl on this step, just the perfect image, or what you think of when you see an addict, defeated, and the sores, and just bad, and to see a complete transformation to where she looks, you would never know 4 months prior, and to hug her and to hold her and to hear her say thank you so much, and to bridge that gap is awesome. I mean, it's probably that's probably one of the most rewarding things, and then also to have your best friend come full circle, to get these people who you never would think they would be, and some of them you kind of are like, man, I don't know if this guy or girl has a fair shot at life, but addiction doesn't care.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
And to, as a police officer and a human being, a man of God, we're fighting evil every day, and to get these people to help, and then for them to take it and to get help, the reward is unbelievable.
And it's pretty interesting, because I feel like part of you, and I know you're a very humble individual,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like there has to be that rewarding feeling has to be so reflective, like back on you. Like, is there? I know you won't show it, but is there a little part of you that when you see someone like that, you sit there and smile, and you recognize the fact, like, hey, that person couldn't have done that on their own, or he couldn't have done that on their own. That was with my help. Like, I had a big part in that.
It's like gratifying.
No, I don't take. I like to think that I maybe played a small part in it. But
Like, you gave them the tools to be able to do it themselves.
I gave them, hope.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is the biggest thing, but without, it's truly a team effort.
Yeah.
That football mentality, that wrestling mentality, it's a team effort. Without, family care ministries and having a police chief that is very, involved in the community, very God-oriented, you know what I mean? And she couldn't have done it. He
Yeah.
couldn't have done it without, something deep inside. And I think you can't deny that it's God work.
Mm-hmm.
God at work. But I don't think of it as me being someone special, you know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm just, but I know that I refuse to sit back and do nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like, that's, I'm glad you brought it up, your faith and the reason that you do everything is because it was laid on your heart by God to do something for somebody. That's the reason, like, everything I post on the Instagrams and the Facebooks and stuff is, I always hashtag a few things, and one of them is always Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
And it's not going to be easy.
It's not.
No.
It's this, becoming a police officer, from never really thinking about it other than watching it on TV, or with Charlie, with you, we're a basketball player, and now you come full circle to be a teacher and a leader of children, and make an impactful, impact on kids' lives and people's lives in general. It's just amazing, to see that having faith in what you're doing and what you feel is right is amazing to me.
Yeah, the word I like to use is conviction.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you have to believe in what you're doing, because like, whether you're working with people on the streets, or you're teaching people at your job, or you're working with students, you have to have conviction and belief in what you're doing, because if you don't believe in what you're doing, no one else will.
Right.
An example that, like, I can give that's kind of easy to understand would be, like, I know some teachers, like, we have our state standards, the things that we have to teach, and there's some teachers, when kids ask, well, why do we have to learn this? I'm never going to use that. And some teachers will say, oh, well, I have to teach this. Well, the kids automatically aren't going to
Engage.
yeah, they're going to
that.
say, well, the teacher doesn't want to teach us. I don't want to learn this. Now, there's balance there, because I pride myself on being real with the kids. Like, I'll tell them, hey, there may not be too many instances where you have to use this. However, this concept will help build on this concept. And you try to teach with enthusiasm, too, because people feed off of that. So regardless of what you're doing, I feel like if you have fun doing it and you show that it's meaningful to you, then it's going to be meaningful to other people. Sometimes, like, I'm sure that some of the individuals that you've helped recover, for lack of a better term, I'm sure that some of those individuals didn't see the path until you showed them the path. Like, say,
Correct.
you have to believe in them almost before they can believe in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And this girl that we're doing round 2 this coming Wednesday of the makeover, just to show them that we're still here. It's we're not going away. We're not giving up on you.
Yep.
But I think all police officers believe, it's their duty, it's their calling. It's a very tough job. Nobody really calls the police for anything good.
Yeah.
Right.
Charlie and Justin doesn't call the police over for dinner and say, "Hey guys, I made some extra stew. Come on over."
I think we should, though.
Yes. No, we get called, and unfortunately, we see people at their worst.
Yeah.
Their worst may only be the neighbor's dog barking, but to them, it's a crisis. So they call us.
I love when people say stuff, because I get this all the time. When people find out I'm a teacher, the first thing they say is, "Oh, God bless you. I could never do that. That's such a difficult job." And I'm not discrediting that. I understand that teaching can be emotionally, spiritually, and even physically stressful at times. I get that 100%. But I worked in the oil field for a summer, like Justin did. And now, I was never a cop, obviously, but I was a bouncer in an inner city nightclub for a couple of years and the head of security. So I understood kind of, to a small degree, what goes into that, too.
Yes.
Trust me, teaching is a breeze compared to that stuff.
But it's where that faith comes in. You know, you believe in what you're doing, and God is going to put you where He needs you. At some point in your life, God is going to use you for His intended purpose.
Bigger purpose than just yourself.
And what you think is best for you, you better get it out of your head, because God may disagree and put you somewhere else.
And I like how you mentioned the team effort, because I think that was probably instilled from a young age with sports. And then you talk about how it takes, like the family recovery, it takes a team of officers, it takes an entire community to help build people up and make our lives better and safer. And then, of course, God plays a role, like your faith plays an enormous role in everything you do. And speaking of the family and the team, you're never alone when you do this stuff, right?
No, nope.
Yeah. So, like, how did you come to partner with Nero? Like, because you've talked about the dog a few times.
So, Chad Tashhorse was due to retire his canine. He had about 2 to 3 years left.
What's the lifespan? I don't want to say lifespan as in living, but the duty span of a canine dog.
Typically, when we get these dogs, they're about 2 years old, depending on the breed and injuries. Typically, they'll work 6 to 8 years.
No, does that include the training time?
So when we get them, they're fully trained.
Okay, got
we
it.
get them from Shallow Creek Kennels. They're world renowned. They are top notch. They've actually gone to the extent to clone dogs.
Wow.
To show that they could do it. It's very expensive, but these dogs, mine is not a clone, but some of the clones are handpicked by the special forces, to find the world's scariest terrorist. So Chad Tashhorse, the canine officer at the time, was he knew that his dog was last couple of years, and we wanted to keep 2 because it's very hard for one dog to be on duty all the time. The dog can only work so much. Typically, I work 8, maybe 16 hours. He has to have time off. He has to have days off. So we wanted 2 dogs, and I worked my tail off. I mean,
no pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. So I'm going out there and I'm chasing evil every single day. I'm drug dealers, drug addicts.
Is that kind of a thing that when you, like the canine, the officers that get the canine are kind of like, you have to earn it, so to speak? Is that kind of a safe assumption?
Yeah. Every department has its own criteria.
Okay.
But yeah, with our department, Chad earned it. Chad was, a go-getter, did very well with his dog. Evo was his name. Unfortunately, right as I graduated, Evo suffered one of the most brutal things I've ever seen a dog go through. We were at training, and he snapped his leg off. Well, not off, broke it at the elbow. We knew instantly something was just, it was bad. Too graphic to really discuss, so we take him to the hospitals, and eventually he had to have it amputated. So now we're back to 1. We did fundraisers for the dog. He was paid for by the community. Donations, t-shirt sales, because we didn't want to put that on the taxpayers. And even now, all his food, his training, all that stuff is paid for by donations. It doesn't cost the city anything. The city did purchase a cruiser,
Yep.
He's out there right now. It's living the dream. It's, temperature gauges, carbon monoxide. So we went to Shallow Creek Kennels. It's in Sharpsville, Pennsylvania, about an hour away by Yankee Lake. 6-week course, and they cram as much information as possible. It's very complex, very hard. So he's trained in narcotics, the finest amounts. I mean, it is amazing what he can do, and not just him. All these dogs. He can track people, apprehend people, which is a fancy word for bite. You lose your car keys out in the field, he can run out there and find them. If someone breaks in your house and is hiding in your house, he can systematically go in there, clear every room, and find the bad guy, and he's gonna bite and hold them until the officers go in there. They are an unbelievable tool. So we're together 24/7. He goes home with me. When I first got him, I was intimidated.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I have 4 large German Shepherds. Nero's about 85 pounds. He's a Belgian Malinois. A lot of people think he's a German Shepherd. And you just shake your head, yes, because they're like, a Belgian what? I'm like, a Belgian Malinois. I'm like, what is that? And basically,
Does it look very similar?
Very similar. Yeah, we picked that breed. He's an unbelievable athlete. That go-getter mentality, that roughness, that rawness. Everything that I was as an athlete, I see in that dog.
That's awesome.
And a dog, a lot of time, mimics a handler. And it's great. That's what you want. You want all 3 of us would probably have different dogs. We're going to pick a dog that fits as close to, if I'm a little bit slower, let's say, I don't want a dog that's the Tasmanian devil because I'm not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
And he has that warrior spirit, that go-getter, and he can turn it on and off at a blink of an eye.
And I see that in you, too, someone who can be very soft-spoken, very reserved, very calm, but when it's go time, either in the gym or in the ring or, in the workforce, like, it's go time.
And that was all shaped and molded by coaches, parents and coaches.
Yep.
And it's helped me into this career. And so he goes home with me. He gets along. If you came over, you would never know that he was a canine.
You wouldn't be able to pick out which one of the 4 was.
Nope. And bring him into schools. So it's nice for kids to get to see him. If he's out of the vehicle, we're inseparable. I mean, he can't get close enough.
Yeah.
But cool. When I first got him, I was intimidated. I'm like, oh my, this is gonna be fun, but within no time, I mean, inseparable.
Bonded quick.
Yeah, so 24/7, 365 days a year. We have something unique coming up. We auditioned for America's Top Dog.
That'd be cool.
That's on A&E Network. One of my teammates is on this season. I think his episode airs March 11th. So we auditioned, Skype interviews. We find out in about 2 weeks if we make it. If we make it, they'll fly us out somewhere, and we'll compete against some of the best dogs in the country, if not world. I don't know what the second season entails, but at least the country. Just kind of see where we stand. I think we can compete at a very high level.
And I like seeing that and hearing that, not only because it's a great opportunity for you, but then when you look at the trajectory of someone's life, I'm sure that a lot of people probably either tell you this, or if they don't tell you this, they think this, like, oh, Chris made it. Like, he's made it. He's good. He's got his career. He's doing everything that needs to be done. He has completely hit the pinnacle of where he wants to go. But, like, you're still growing. You're not even close to where you want to be.
In some retrospect, I would agree with you. But it's a very hard pill to swallow to say that you're successful. I think that definitely wouldn't be here without my parents, my coaches, a lot of mentors throughout my life, and I tried to take the good out of everybody and mold that into my own person. Yeah. But that accountability and work ethic instilled in me from my parents at 5, 6, 7 years old. It's worked every facet of my life, and I just continue to go and go and go. And
that's why you can't underplay the importance of helping someone, not just as a parent, obviously.
Well, as a teacher, if Justin's in the oil field, he might be able to make an impression on somebody that was maybe going down the wrong path, and like, I like that dude, and they look up to him, and that's what I love about teachers and police and people that have a position to make an influence.
I think it's like a pyramid scheme and like a business model where, okay, maybe Justin affects someone in the oil field. Well, then if that person turns his life around, even because of some minor change or something that Justin said that completely, revolutionized the way he thought, how many people is he going to go change now?
Yeah,
And then
right.
how many people? So if
Absolutely.
you look at all the lives that you've saved and all the people that you've helped, which is innumerable at this point, you know, your parents should take a little bit of stake in that, like,
Absolutely.
because they did it for
My
you.
dad would
and-
never would. My dad is a humble piece of pie.
Yeah.
You would,
Hugely.
yeah, he's a great man. I mean, but man, was he tough. But it's really, I could not have done it without him or my mom.
I really admire the emphasis you put on work ethic constantly. You know, we didn't talk about that in the quote unquote pregame to this podcast, this episode. We didn't talk about work ethic as like as a center, as a cornerstone, and that's something that me and Charlie talk about constantly.
Especially
off
with
the
like
air.
the fitness undertones
Yeah.
of the podcast.
It's work ethic. It's if you have that instilled in you as a kid,
And even as
It's
a somebody in their 20s and 30s, it's never too late to develop that
Right.
work ethic. You
No.
just have to be willing to put the work in.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier growing up with it.
Yes.
It's
'Cause
like
you don't know any different.
Exactly.
Right.
And then, but learning it at a late age is very, very difficult. And I think that sometimes it's even difficult when you let it go astray and then you recall it. So, like for you, Justin, you know, letting yourself get out of shape
Yep.
and then saying, hey, I've been taught this. I need to kind of retool and reprogram my brain to when I was younger and I had the work ethic to kind of reboot that and then start it again. So I feel
Absolutely.
like that's difficult too.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean,
It's not.
the work ethic, no matter whether what career field you're in, and to see the people that some of the people with the addiction problem that we deal with. My passion is drugs, getting rid of
Mm-hmm.
the dealers, putting them in jail, prison. Ultimately, you would like them just to clean up their act and be a model citizen. But a lot of them don't want that.
Is part of your emphasis on being so drug driven and looking at that as something that needs eliminated, is part of that because of the area you grew up in? Like, did you see a lot of that growing up as a kid? No, obviously not within your
I knew
family.
it existed in our neighborhood.
So you're pretty
absolutely.
just well apt to knowing that it's out there. Like
Yes.
you said you were street smart earlier.
Yes.
Like you know what goes on. And
Yeah, and that came from my mom. My mom's savvy, very skeptical person, if I even said it right. But got that from her. And
just kind of always cautious and always
Yes.
thinking
Yeah.
about things.
Yes.
And
yeah, I would be in college and my mom would send me birthday cards and P.S. don't trust anybody. Like you know what I mean? When I'm at Mount Union, I'm like, Mom, like what are you doing? But it's just like it's just her way of being like, hey, don't
yeah.
look past everything and just do your research. But the work ethic, it's probably the biggest thing I learned from my parents.
And one of the biggest parts of this interview that we wanted to touch on was when you speak about the drugs, your passion almost cost you your life.
Yeah.
And that was coming up on, did you say 3 years?
May 12th, 2017.
Okay. So coming up on 3 years here in a few short months, you kind of made national news and national headlines, which I'm sure all of our listeners can probably remember. And if they can't, they can certainly Google it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it wasn't for good reason. I mean, good attempts,
A
but
lot
bad
of
things.
a lot of good came out of it.
Absolutely. So go into detail. Tell the whole story, basically from start to finish. I mean, what happened with that?
I know we're on the time, so I'll So 2017, this whole area was just ravaged. Drugs, a lot of overdoses. This whole area was on the news all the time for this many people dead, this many people dead. So I was assigned from East Liverpool Police Department with another officer to Columbiana County Drug Task Force. At the time, I was a plainclothes officer. I'm doing surveillance. We were doing a wiretap on a drug organization from Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Heartless Felons and Down the Way gang. So these individuals would bring fentanyl, heroin, other drugs, but primarily fentanyl and heroin to places like Calcutta and East Liverpool and just sell it.
Yeah.
And tons of people were dying. So
How much money are we talking, just for reference sake, is getting, worth of drugs is coming into the area at the time, if you can speculate on a number?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, enough to kill the entire city, enough drugs to kill the entire city. The incident where I was exposed, that would have been enough to probably kill East Liverpool. We could never be for certain because they destroyed most of it. So we're doing a drug investigation. At that time, I only had a couple months on at the Drug Task Force. I was newly assigned. I was an officer for several years, but another officer that I'm very good friends with, he's my work wife, as I call him. I talk to him more than my wife. Any drug information, hey, this person moved here, let's keep tabs on him. He sees somebody in his neighborhood that is under the investigation, and we call out to the uniform officers. They stop the vehicle. As they stop the vehicle, they see these two individuals, Justin Buckle and Cortez Collins. They just got back from Cleveland, and they're ripping up these bags and stomping it in the center console, pouring Mountain Dew on it, and it's white powder. So they get them out, they handcuff them. In one of the pictures, you'll see Justin's red and black shoe that I took from his person. He had white powder all over the shoe. So we get them back to the station. There's many reports, but for some reason media gets it slightly wrong, and then somebody else gets it. It's at that game that we'll play, played in school. You tell me something, then the next person. By the time you get to the end of the room, it's like, wait a minute.
That's not even close to what we said.
So there's some of that out there. So we get back to the station, and I'm lifting up their shirts, taking pictures of the chest tattoos, the gangs, and talking to them to figure out, are they going to overdose, or is it actually drugs? Is it baking soda? Because we really didn't know. And at this time, fentanyl was very new to us. We knew what it was. We knew roughly how potent it was, and we knew it was killing tons and tons of people in our neighborhoods. When I got the phone call, I was actually off duty. I was going into FLX Fitness Friday afternoon, sunny like it is today, just a lot warmer, and I had Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. I was taking a long weekend to go turkey hunting, so I was getting an evening workout. I was going to spend a weekend in the woods, and they make the arrest for them destroying the drugs at the traffic stop. So I leave the gym and then go to the scene, I guess is what I was getting at. From the scene, we go to the police station. We do the charges, and as I'm taking pictures and stuff of them and their clothes, I never realized that the powder was on their clothes. I knew it was on his shoes, and I took the shoe because that's what I could see. And now it's low light conditions on a traffic stop, so this fine powder that's all over their the side of their bodies, from where they're destroying it, ripping it up, because they didn't want us weighing the bags. We collected some at the scene, but the officer that collected wasn't even me. As they're collecting it, because we wanted to test it, what are they destroying? If it's baking soda, why are they going to that extreme? And so we collect it, but they didn't want us to weigh the whole amount, so it would be a much more significant charge. I'm leaving for the night after we arrest them. It's about 11 at night. Shift change is right around 11:15, so midnight shift's coming on, and we're high-fiving, shaking hands. As I'm walking out the door, my supervisor says, "What's on your shirt?" I laugh. I'm like, real funny, old man, because this is one of the older guys, and he literally yanks me back, like tugs my shirt and says, no, what's that? It's right at my, on my left side, my left hip, right at my belt line. Not thinking, I wipe it off, and mind you, we've been at this for hours. I'm sweating. I'm literally in sweat clothes, and I'm sweating my butt off. I wipe it off, and then I used hand sanitizer. How many times you use hand sanitizer a day to clean your hands?
Yeah.
It's safe. 30 seconds later, I was unconscious, fighting for my life. So just before that, the individual from Cleveland, Cortez Collins, started experiencing overdose symptoms. But he said, I'm having an asthma attack, but we knew he was lying.
Yeah,
We
ODing, obviously. He's just trying.
We thought he just wanted to get out of jail. So I called an ambulance, and we get the ambulance there. As the ambulance arrives, we're like, yeah, we're going to take him. He's off, but he's not unconscious.
He's
not making sense. That saved my own life.
Wow.
So after I used a hand sanitizer, I look at my partner, Rob Smith, and we're standing at the counter in dispatch. I look at him and I just start mumbling. I'm like, I don't feel right, man. And just start mumbling and just not making sense. And I fall backwards, trying to catch myself, and then I start to fall forward. I try to catch myself again on the printer. There's like a big printer, and he realizes something's not right. And then I fall face first into the tile. He catches me, keeps me from smacking my face. They rushed me to the hospital. My heart rate got as low as 40, and that's after 2 doses of Narcan.
Mm-hmm.
And
after 2 doses of Narcan, it was 40 beats per minute.
40, yes.
Wow.
With the monitor, on the monitor.
Yeah.
And I have no recollection. So once I passed out at the station, I have no recollection of the hospital.
And to interrupt you, did they realize pretty quickly that it was an accidental overdose because of the contact, or did they think that it was something health related? Did they?
No, they knew it was.
They knew right away.
They knew it was an overdose because of what we were dealing with at the scene.
Mm-hmm. Because particles are airborne. You're wiping it off with your hand, not thinking, and then next thing you know, you're literally dying.
Right, because we were doing a fentanyl and heroin investigation. That's what they're destroying.
Yeah.
So they then take what the news doesn't report is they took one of the suspects, Cortez Collins, also to the who I called the ambulance for. They take him. They realize that he's absolutely covered in it.
Yeah.
They take his clothes off. They decontaminate him. They treat him, and then he was taken to jail.
Now he's starting to have issues too. Obviously, not as severe due to just saturation, where he's been used to it, and you've never obviously had anything like that in your system, so it hits you a little bit harder, I would assume.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. So I get the 2 doses. My heart rate's around 40. I'm having, at this point, I'm completely out of it. I don't know. And there's a ton of people, firemen and police and city administration and nurses in my room.
So are you conscious now?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember if I was conscious. So I'm going to say no, but...
Yeah, just no recollection of any of this.
No.
After you fell over, it was lights out, basically.
No, so heart rate's 40, 2 doses of Narcan, and the police chief, says, what, because I guess I was having like seizure-like symptoms, and they gave me 2 more doses, and at a little bit later I started coming to, and then I woke up. I remember waking up, and I've had surgery, so that's kind of how I relate it. If you ever had surgery, you kind of wake up and you're in the post-op room, and you see all these random nurses and sounds, and it's almost like you're, and it was one of the most horrific things I've ever been through in my life.
And then, of course, it gets blown up all over national news.
And I never dreamed of that, yeah. So I get tested for the next couple weeks of because it felt, so this happened Friday, got released Saturday morning. Sunday and Monday, I didn't get to go hunting, and I was more upset about that than anything. So Saturday, we go get new shoes and clothes and Boardman, and I don't remember.
Wow.
I don't remember Saturday.
So there's
at
still
all.
some lingering neurological effects at the time.
I did an interview with the newspaper, the local reporter, Joanne Bobby Gilbert, and don't remember. You know what I mean? I knew that she was going to make it tasteful. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't going to distort the facts or anything like that. And Sunday and Monday, it felt like my bones were crushing.
Wow.
And I talked to Josh Lytle, who's a former addict, and now he's runs Family Care Ministries, and he said, "Man, that's your body detoxing." And I'm like, "No way!" And I go into work Tuesday, and it was a media frenzy.
Wow! Just waiting on you.
Just waiting. And Chief called me Monday. I'm still at home, and I said, "Man, I can't talk. I'm in pain." But I was so scared that I didn't even take Tylenol, didn't take ibuprofen, didn't take anything. Just a lot of water and rest. And one thing led to another, but I knew right then and there that it was a message from God, that I was to deliver the message, and the message was, there's hope, look what it does to people, look, I'm perfect, I'm fit, I stay in the gym, and it hit me like something I've never.
Harder than any punch you've ever taken.
Yeah. And the lasting effects have never went away. I don't have physical, but the mental is hard. A lot of nightmares, a lot of sleepless nights. It's hard on my wife. luckily I didn't have any kids at the time. About to have our first, but I don't want to bring that home.
Yeah.
What if I would have come up to do this podcast and I, didn't know it and I touched it, brushed up against it, and I give Charlie a high five or see you in Walmart, see Justin, come over for family dinner, and I don't realize I have it on me. And that's what these police officers and these first responders are going up against.
Yeah.
We're searching cars. We're dealing with overdoses. We're dealing,
just airborne particles and stuff can so quickly.
There's an incident in Russia where it was pumped into a movie theater because there was a hostage situation.
Wow.
I think maybe 2012, and it killed almost everybody, because they thought, we'll get rid of the hostages, but they got rid of everybody. So it's literally a weapon of mass destruction. So it tested positive for fentanyl. They get sentenced to prison. Tons and tons of interviews all over the country, actually all over the world, Canada, Australia, overseas, and my case is used as a learning tool, do's and don'ts. At that time, we were using latex gloves. Now we have to use special gloves, mask. We don't test the items anymore on the street. I got to go to the State of the Union address, sat in Congress to watch the president. About from me to you is how close I got, but didn't get to shake his hand or anything. Got to meet the sons in passing, Donald Trump's sons, and the experiences that this job has given me is amazing.
And then it goes back to how rewarding it truly is.
It's one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had, and that's why I continue to do it. I know that's what I'm supposed to do.
And you've done a lot of rewarding things, like obviously sports things, and then this is kind of a branch of sports, like with your fighting and all your titles that you had. Like I said, we could have done a whole episode of the podcast just on that. So for you to choose law enforcement over all those other avenues that you could have done,
it was that warrior fighter mentality, and it's really gone at work.
Yes.
I'm a messenger. I'm trying to get these people help that don't want help, and try to get them to to see that there's hope. I've spoken to a lot of officers, a lot of different agencies about my incident, and for some reason mine made national news. There's been other officers, there's been nurses, it's happened, but mine was one of the newest, and for some reason it just it took off.
Right place, right time, kind of.
Or wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah,
True. So, but it's been a learning tool, and so it's saved people's lives.
Yep.
Officers, taking that extra step, that extra precaution. There's so many times that we're searching a suspect and don't have gloves on, or searching a car and it's like, wait a minute, you stop what you're doing and take these extra precautions. But it's scary. It had killed the dog. It had killed Nero instantly. There's an organization that Protecting Canine Heroes is sending him a vest and Narcan because there's a chance that he could be exposed.
Yeah, if he was with
it's
you.
almost an if he's exposed or when he's exposed, not really an if. I mean, with what you guys deal with.
It's scary. I mean, it's definitely gotten better, but without people like you and you, to teach these kids, to be a mentor, to hopefully they never go down that path.
Yeah,
to where I'm dealing with them.
In the best way, to save the kids is to never let them get there. Okay. That was always my mentality when I was working security at the club, was always, the best way to keep problems out of the club, or the best way to stop stuff from happening, is don't let it in the club. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to work the front door, just to make sure that, none of the riffraff got in, because that was the easiest way to prevent it. So the easiest way to prevent these kids, from dealing with that is not ever letting them get to that point where you have to be the one
make
to
good
save
decisions.
Them.
The wrestling team has choices. Life's about choices.
Yep.
It's probably one of the best slogans I've ever seen in my life.
I agree.
And Doug Hopple's an outstanding human being. He's a role model. Jordan Williams. All these wrestling coaches, they're mentoring these kids, and there's no telling how many lives we've all saved. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just I was chosen for a different route.
So branching off of that, we're gonna kind of bring everything to a close now. I mean, we could talk to you for hours about all this stuff.
And I could probably talk
detail.
for hours. I'm a chatterbox sometimes.
It's unreal. So typically something we do, and we mentioned to you briefly before we started, is we try to kind of relate everything back to the theme of the podcast. So obviously we have some, like I mentioned earlier, some fitness undertones. You know, we're very health oriented, and that's something that we kind of continue to go back to. But the title of the podcast is really, you know, the cornerstone of everything, the Chasing Dreams podcast. And we always want to kind of share with our listeners how the individual that we interview at the time kind of fits that mold. Like, why did we choose Officer Green to come on our show?
Yeah. So, what does the phrase chasing dreams mean to you?
Without giving it much thought, I hope that I make an influence in as many people's lives as possible through my overdose, through my police work, through my faith, to be a role model. My dream is, you know, for the community, you know, for, you know, people of all ages to be like, man, you know, that guy gets it. You know, that he's doing something, you know. I want to be known as, you know, I gave it everything.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's hard.
Yeah. It is. It is hard. So, and then to branch off of that, do you feel that you have chased your dreams this far in life?
I'm definitely working on it.
And I feel like that's the general consensus with most people that we
Yeah.
ask that question is, yes, I have, but I haven't caught them yet.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
chasing them, just not there.
I almost never want to catch mine.
Yeah. and could you ever really truly catch yours?
Right.
You know? So I kind of agree with that too.
Yeah, I'm definitely blessed. Beautiful wife, son on the way. I have the things in life that I need.
Yeah.
There's always things that you want, but do you really? Is it a want or is it need? I have everything that I need. I have my faith. I have my family. Great friends. It's like, when does a person realize that they made it? You know, Brett Favre. I'm sure I just played football. I didn't make it. I'm nobody. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
at what point do you realize that you made it?
Yeah. Or do you ever truly make it? You know, I mean, it's difficult to say.
I won't know until I'm old. You know,
Yeah.
looking back, but I want to be somebody that can, you know, that people can look up to and be like, man, that kid gave it his all. You know, he gave everything he had to that dog, to the police department, to the community. You know, I could not do any of this without God. I mean, first and foremost, and then my family. The best, you know, family and wife. But I hope, looking back, people were like, man, you know, he was successful. You know, I don't know if I'll ever think that I'm successful. You know,
That's good. That's awesome. So, and then how do you plan to continue to chase your dreams? And then, you know, you said earlier helping others, so like help others chase their dreams.
I want to be a role model. It kind of sounds bad. I don't want to say I want to be a role model, but I want to live in a way that wants people to do better. I want to influence people of all ages to do better. I want to be better. There's many areas where I need to be better, and I know that. And
I really like how he worded that. I like how you said, I don't necessarily want to be a role model, but I want to do things and accomplish things that make others look at me like a role model.
Right.
I really like that.
And then there's people that, you know, are role models of mine that don't even realize that they are, and they don't need to know. It's just it's ever improving, ever you know, just becoming a better person. No matter if you're a janitor, a teacher, you know, unemployed, it doesn't matter. You know, that title doesn't matter. What are you doing to help others? You know, what I want to be a good influence. I want people to want to be better, you know, and whether it's maybe having a 5-minute chat with a kid in a classroom or a hallway, you know, I want everybody to succeed. I'm not selfish, you know. I don't. I'd give everything, if you know, everything I had away to, you know, for somebody else to be successful.
Yes.
And I think that's the true mark of a leader and someone who is successful, someone who, wants other people to join in.
Yeah. Because there was many people in my life that I owe everything to that they probably don't even realize that they were a good influence.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to say that they were as big as influence as they were.
Yeah, don't realize how impactful they were.
And I want to give back, and somebody that may not think that they have a chance to know you got a chance.
Well, appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah,
I mean, this was very enlightening, very inspiring. Justin, you got some reservations you got to head to with the woman in Pittsburgh.
It's all good.
We appreciate your time, officer. So, to our listeners out there, as always, we love that you tune in. We wish you a happy belated Valentine's Day by the time this airs. So, for the Chasing Dreams podcast, episode 13, I'm Charlie, this is Justin, and we are out.